Joined by Danielle Feinberg, the incredibly talented visual effects supervisor at Pixar Animation Studios. Danielle is also the keynote speaker for this year's AVIXA Women's Council Breakfast. So thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So my understanding is this your first InfoComm?
This is my first InfoComm, yep.
Okay, so what do you think? And are your feet hurting? Are you seeing some cool technology? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's hard to even pay attention because there's just right behind here, there's so many screens going and with beautiful stuff on them. So.
Exactly.
And there's a ton of energy, and I have to say, the Women's Council breakfast this morning was full of great energy in a room full of 350 women. It was really cool.
It's always a sold-out event, so I'm so excited. We want to hear a little bit more about that. But can you share a little bit with me and our audience about your journey into the field of animation and technology?
Yeah, so I studied computer science in college, and my junior year I took a computer graphics class, and the professor showed us the short films made by Pixar in the late 80s and early 90s. This was probably 1994, and I had this total epiphany of like, that's what I want to do. I had no idea how to do it, but no one knew what Pixar was then. But then within a year, Toy Story came out, which was the first feature-length animated film, and so it's like, that Pixar place, they must have jobs, because they made a movie. So I started at Pixar about 8 months after I graduated, and I started in a very kind of technical entry-level position on A Bug's Life, but did a little lighting and then got to move up. Back then, people didn't have experience doing computer animation because it was so new. So they said, oh, well, you did a good job. What do you want to try now? And I said, modeling and lighting. And so I kind of worked my way up through the ranks there over time. And I directed the lighting for Wall-E, Brave, and Coco. And recently took on the role of visual effects supervisor for Turning Red. And now I'm on Secret Stuff, but I did just get to help out for a minute on Inside Out 2 to help them get it through to the end. It opens tomorrow, and I got to go back to my roots and do lighting on that for like 4 months, which was super fun.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. It's real relevant. Okay, so that comes out tomorrow?
It comes out tomorrow,
okay,
yeah.
Okay, so we're going to check out your work.
Yeah, that's hot off the press. That's amazing. And what a great message, I think, as well, for when you said about how you got into it. It was like, this is what I want to do. I've seen something I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but at least I've got the idea. I've got the vision. So get the vision and then figure out the details later.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Always say yes.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were speaking at the AVIXA Women's Council breakfast. Can you give us a little of a rundown of how that went and how the whole event was?
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was a giant room full of women, and everybody was fired up. They're excited about the conference, and there's great energy because it was a room full of women, and I got to talk to them about different challenges on our films, but also different challenges I've encountered in my life, and kind of weaving those together into some maybe life advice, and now they could probably all make their own animated film, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We had a really good time. It was a lot of fun.
That's incredible. So, storytelling. It's all about storytelling, right?
Yeah.
In your professional life, in doing these incredible speeches that you do and supporting our industry. Yeah, we appreciate it so much. Thank you so much.
It was such a great time.
Absolutely. And so you were talking about some of the projects that you were working on. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into like the AV technology side of things. So can you provide us some examples of how AV technology has really enhanced your work, particularly when it comes to creating immersive experiences on some of those projects with Pixar?
Yeah, I think one of the more recent examples is when I was directing the lighting, I was in the theaters making sure that the color was correct on the monitor, making sure that everything was sort of dialed in exactly. Lighting is sort of the final creative step, and so I am the eyes to make sure it's exactly what we want. And so as I was doing that on Coco, was the last movie that I directed lighting for, Atmos sound started coming through, and so how immersive that was in the theaters. And now, because that can come in a non-cinematic setting, and so I could be sitting at home and it's doing the right thing with this thing that's been engineered to be sort of all around you. And that allows also the sound designers to think more about the creative nuance of things instead of the sort of dynamics of delivery or the mechanics of delivery. And so that's one that occurs to me as a sort of an immersive thing that that I remember being sort of blown away by, and just how much it changed things.
That's fantastic.
And has that changed, that technology you're speaking of, has that changed much? Has it been advancing a lot since you first kind of got involved with it to now? Has there been a lot of advancements in that space?
We would have to probably ask our sound engineers that more than me. I'm more of like, I'm sitting in the room and they're asking me, does the picture look exactly right? And I'm like, but that's sound, that's amazing.
Absolutely, that's great. I'd like to also give you an opportunity to talk about the STEM camps for girls that you're involved with, because that sounds like an incredible initiative. Can you give us some information about that?
Yeah, so I think it was 2003, Finding Nemo had come out. That's how my timeline of my life is all about which movie came out. And someone posted at Pixar trying to raise money for this girls' math and science camp. And I thought, oh, I wish I had that growing up. And it was for girls between 7th and 8th grade, so probably 13.
Yeah.
And I emailed them. I looked at their website and I emailed them and I said, hey, I know camp's next week, but I would have loved to have had this when I was growing up. Maybe I could do something next year. And then I gave my credentials. I was like, and I studied computer science at Harvard, and I work at Pixar doing animated films. And the woman wrote me back almost immediately, and she said, I scheduled you for 3 classes next week. You need to be down at Stanford. And so I drove down to Stanford with, Publicity gave me the most enormous stuffed Dory and stuffed Nemo. And so my car was filled, and I'm driving down the highway, and people are giving me very funny looks. But that was sort of how I got started speaking. And watching the girls' eyes when I talked about all the math and science behind our films, and it was all stuff they could understand. I wasn't going into like deep math. And that was what made animated films that they loved. You could see how excited they were about it. It was the same way I felt when I was sitting in my computer graphics class. And so I was sort of hooked from then on, and I just do whatever I can to try and sort of change who is in the field. And so there's more women and underserved populations, and by just showing them some of the great things that you can do with math and science so they stick with it, not necessarily to make movies, but just that there's really exciting things you can do beyond a problem set or something.
Yeah. Sure. And I think as well, it kind of speaks to the point that we're speaking about with our previous guests from Matrix Video. We can get really into the depth and the kind of technical details of certain parts, but then when you're speaking to other audiences where it's a lot more kind of high level, it's really important to be dynamic, right, and deliver the right message to the right person. And I suppose as well, having Dory and Nemo in the car, you can use the carpool lane. Right?
I mean, it helped, yeah, and the carpool lane, I'm sure.
People were probably looking because they were jealous and they wanted one of those things. But that's fantastic. And yes, absolutely, representation matters. So really great to hear how you're doing that and your outreach there. And we couldn't let you leave without talking about AI. So obviously it's a hot topic. And can you just share a little bit about how AI has been utilized in your projects at Pixar, and where do you see its future role going forward in animation?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of times now when we're talking about AI that's sort of everywhere, we're talking generative AI that's like a ChatGPT or a Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, those kinds of things. There's things that fall under AI that have been going for years, and so we don't use any of the generative AI in our films yet, but we have been using something since Toy Story 4 that's called a denoiser, and so we send all our information off to the machines to generate a frame that shows up in a theater or on your screen, and we can have the computer stop calculating earlier than finished and run it through that denoiser, and it magically makes the perfect image because it's used machine learning to learn what it should be doing. And it's, to me, it is magic because it's like, that is amazing, it can do that. And so I think that's some of the excitement now is some of the magic that's coming from AI of sort of generating images and all the stuff ChatGPT can do. I think for me right now personally, I've tried generating images with AI, and while it is super inspirational, I get really excited about it. Trying to, like, putting in a prompt and seeing something and you're like, wow, that's really cool, or that's really cool, and I like this piece of that one and that. But if I'm trying to use it to make an image I have in my head, or to convey something that is kind of exacting, because we're kind of control freaks at Pixar. We really love to do exactly what, have control over everything. I can't quite get it there.
Okay.
And so I think the thing about AI that's terrifying and awesome is just how fast everything is getting better and better.
Yeah.
I think as a technologist and an artist, I have to believe that we can use it to help us with some of the things we care less about, but that sort of the fundamental human experience of creating art to express who we are is never going to go away.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm absolutely positive that you will have inspired a ton of people with your story. If they would like to get in touch, what's the best? And hopefully this doesn't open a tsunami of emails and everything like that, but if they want to get in touch with you, are you on LinkedIn? Can they find you there?
I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. That's where I'm probably most active, is LinkedIn and Instagram.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully you enjoy the rest of the show, go and see some cool tech, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.